My mother once told me that if you reach a certain age, you will most likely die by one of three ways: a stroke, a heart attack, or cancer. I asked her which method of death she preferred. She drew on her cigarette and exhaled a jet stream of smoke. Well, she said, dying by stroke and heart attack are relatively quick and painless, but at least with cancer, you can arrange your affairs a bit before you go. Then she gave me a look, the one that said, "So what else do you want to know?" When I was 16, my mother and I fought often, mostly about my less than acceptable grades. My mother was a physician who graduated medical school in 1958, one of only 3 women in a class of 500 students. Grades were important. And it was around this time that I had begun to refer to my mother as Death, behind her back, of course. I thought it was an apt nickname for a New York City emergency room doctor who smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I'd make up names for fictitious movies based on whatever my mother was doing and write them in sharp block letters in the margins of my notebook. Death meets the teachers. Death lies sleeping upstairs. Death is a bitch. 23 years later, when my mother-in-law, Linda, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, I would need Death to teach me everything she knew about dying. My husband and I got the news that a mass had been found in Linda's pancreas. I immediately called my mother. She went silent on the phone, an unusual occurrence in itself. And then finally, "That's a death sentence," she said. Linda wept as she told me how terrified she was of her upcoming surgery and what the doctors might find when they opened her up. I was surprised she was confiding in me. During the 10 years I had been married to her son, Linda and I had a friendly relationship, but not an especially close one. She told me she felt all alone. She was a divorced woman in her 60s. I placed my arms around her and gave her a hug, something I was not in the habit of doing. "You can stay with us," I said. "You don't have a guest room," she countered. "I'll move my home office into the basement, and we'll convert that room into a guest room." "I don't want to inconvenience you." "We want you to stay with us," I heard myself saying. I just don't know what to do. "Linda, you can stay with us." I said it for the 3rd time. She wasn't sure whether to believe me. I wasn't sure whether to believe me either, but there were no other options. And just like that, it was settled. Late September 2006, Linda moved in. Friends and relatives called daily. Often she was too tired to come to the phone, so I spoke with them. I became her gatekeeper to the outside world and her constant companion. I watched as she was unable to eat a piece of toast in a single sitting. I saw her stop and catch her breath when she walked from my family room to my kitchen. She took 2 naps daily and still was exhausted by 8 p.m. "This is as good as it gets," my mother told me. "You have to help her make the most of the time she has left. She's not going to last till the end of the year." Death had given me her professional opinion, but I didn't know what to do with it. My husband was praying for a miracle, making plans for a family Christmas. Christmas had always been Linda's favorite holiday. One afternoon, she shared with me a bucket list she had written. Number 1, blow out Christmas. Linda is Catholic, and I am Jewish. During my marriage, I had learned to celebrate Christmas with my mother-in-law with what can best be described as polite enthusiasm. In my home, my husband and I created our own traditions. We decorated with white pin lights around the fireplace and greenery wrapped around the chandelier. When my mother visited, she would complain that the lights and greenery were Christmas decorations. When my mother-in-law visited, she would complain that they weren't. But if Christmas was what Linda wanted, then I was going to help her do it. We brought over 30 boxes of Christmas decorations from Linda's house to my garage. Together, we ventured out shopping and bought a second Christmas tree for the house, 12 feet tall. We needed more lights, trees, Santa's reindeers. We brought it all and put it in my garage, waiting to be set up. A few days later, Death came to visit. We chatted in my garage. My mother liked hanging out there. It was the one place in my house where she was allowed to smoke. That's when she noticed the warehouse of Christmas decorations piled up around us. "Terry," she said, "I understand if Linda wants to put up a few little decorations in her room, but I think decorating the whole house is unnecessary. It'll confuse the children." Well, I worried about the same thing, I told her, so I asked my rabbi about it. And he said that as Jews, we have a long-established tradition of comforting the sick. "I'm only doing what you told me anyway, making the most of the time she has left." So really, helping my Catholic mother-in-law celebrate her last Christmas, well, that's about the most Jewish thing I could do. Death took a deep drag on her cigarette and looked at me. "Goddamn Reform Rabbi, I bet," she said. End of conversation. Except that I never actually spoke to my rabbi. I wanted to, I intended to, but I just never got around to it. I spoke to my older sister, Lori, instead. Lori is not a rabbi. She's a marketing consultant in Silicon Valley. But she was a psychology major in college and one of Death's daughters, too, which made her uniquely qualified to advise me. And it was Lori who told me that giving my home to Linda for the holidays was a very Jewish thing to do. Rabbi or marketing consultant, I saw no reason to get caught up in semantics. 2 days later, Linda caught an infection and was admitted to the hospital. And we never did get our chance to have our blowout Christmas. She died on November 20th of that year. And I think often about that time when Linda lived with us and how we supported her. Death is never easy, and my mother would be the first to agree. But then she would tell me that being easy was never her goal in life anyway.